I get a buzz when I drive to work and I see one of our DENS posters up. When I'm driving around Hemel Hempstead and I see our DENS van, I am so proud of what we do.
As a business community, I know that business community is very proud of DENS as well, always wanting to get behind and support them.
Our local coffee shop in Hemel High Street in the Old Town, they're big supporters of DENS. And for me, that's just fantastic. That gives me such a buzz.
Hello and welcome to Berko and Beyond. On the show this week, Wendy Lewington, CEO of DENS. Let's dive in. Wendy Lewington, welcome to Berko and Beyond.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me here today.
It is a pleasure to have you here. We have so many wonderful charities in the Berkhamsted area and Dacorum, and DENS is, of course, one of them, and you're the first of the charities to be on the podcast, so thanks for doing that. I know a lot of people in the community know about DENS, but just give us an overview.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully, a lot of people will have heard of DENS, and they'll probably know us either about our hostel or about our food bank, because they're the most sort of prominent services, and they will think of DENS about homelessness, and we are, but we are actually much wider than that. So DENS is really there to help anyone facing social exclusion, poverty or homelessness. And we do have direct services. We do a lot of work. We have a 44-bed hostel. We have a day centre. So we have those services directly working with people that are facing homelessness. But more and more, we're really focusing on prevention and really trying to tackle the root causes of homelessness. So our new strategy and what we're really looking at is how we can prevent homelessness, and that's really looking at poverty and social exclusion, providing direct services for those facing homelessness, but then supporting people once they've come to the end of their homelessness journey, supporting people in the community. Because what we really want to do is prevent people coming back into homelessness and really breaking the cycle. So we're there to meet people wherever they are on their journey and help them take that next positive step, really.
It is a huge topic, and it's a huge issue. It's a huge challenge, and I think that approach to every part of the journey and not letting people fall back into homelessness. Is there any point along that journey where there is a big challenge? There's one thing that can change it for them.
I think it's complex. Homelessness, and this is going to sound silly, but homelessness is far more than just not having somewhere to live. And it is really important that there's social and council housing out there. But just having more accommodation isn't the answer. People that are homeless have often faced a lifetime of trauma. And in our hostel, for example, we know that 70 to 80% of people in our hostel have had childhood trauma.
Wow.
Unless you deal with the root causes, you're not going to break the cycle. And a lot of that is around mental health issues, drug and alcohol issues, and just supporting people to build the resilience and build their own skills so they can live independently. I said that could be around mental health, that could be around budgeting, it could be about employment, and also about the social exclusion. We want to ensure that people play an active part in their community, because if someone's socially isolated, they become really vulnerable. So it's so much more complex. It's around that wraparound support that's so important.
Because I think the perception, the misconception, which you know what I'm getting at, is that something's happened. It's to those people that it's their fault.
Yeah. And
that is, as you're describing, is often, in fact, probably always not the case.
Absolutely. And it's a societal issue. And I mean, what I'd like to do is do ourselves out of a job. I'd love us not to have to exist in the future. I don't think that's going to happen, not in my lifetime anyway. But that's why it's so important to look at, as I said, what the root causes are. Look at how we can prevent people becoming homelessness and breaking the cycle. But actually, I think it goes further than that. It's looking at people's childhoods. It's looking at what support we provide around children, around mental health. It's looking at family breakdowns. It's looking at what leads someone into drug and alcohol. If we can deal with all of that, yes, there will still be people that will have homelessness issues and will have issues in the future. But what we want to do is reduce the number of people we have to work with in the future.
So you've been at DENS for nearly 10.
Nearly
this is your 10 years. That's
yeah.
fantastic. And so I wonder how that strategy has changed over the years, because I guess traditionally with charities, it was that sticking plaster of, right, here's a blanket or here's a bed for the night kind of thing. How and why has that changed over the years?
So what we've always really tried to do as an organisation is really develop our services that are informed by the experiences of our clients, but also listening to our frontline staff. Our frontline staff knows what makes a difference. I'm lucky. I'm the CEO of a charity of a size where if I go into our services, our clients know me, which is brilliant. But I don't know day to day the stuff our frontline staff know. And it was about 6 or 7 years ago, our staff were saying to us, it's great that we provide all these services, but actually when people go into the community, they don't have the life skills to be able to maintain a tenancy. So we developed a whole program around life skills. And it's literally, while people at the hostel, helping them learn about basic cooking on a budget, how to maintain a tenancy. And I know this sounds really basic, but how to keep their own space tidy, even looking at personal hygiene issues, all those issues, unless we tackle when they maybe move into a social or council housing, they're not going to be able to maintain that. So and that's really with our therapy service as well. So we actually have an in-house therapy service, and it's we have a very experienced psychotherapist, and it's open to our clients within our hostel, and it's long-term therapy, which makes it very different than what can be provided on the NHS. And that came about because we knew from our clients that's what they needed. It started as a part-time project. We now have a full-time therapist and 8 counselling students on placement because we could see the difference that was making. And it's also around our accommodation services as well. Over the last year, we have not just been full to capacity, but we've had a waiting list. So we're now looking at what other services we can provide in the community to reduce the waiting list. So I think we're a charity the size we are that we can be quite agile, and that's quite important because the world changes and the world can change quite quickly, and we need to be able to adapt to that.
It's crazy to me that there is a waiting list for a homeless hostel in the sense of it's crazy to think about that. Yeah. But obviously you think, well, of course, because if the hostel's full, then where are they? They're still rough sleeping. And
we're quite lucky that we have actually really low rough sleeper numbers because we have a crash pad. So literally in our hostel, we have a room that mattresses go down on the floor. So if anyone has nowhere to stay, they can stay there. And often people can find somewhere for a short period of time. So it might be family and friends for a short period of time. If they're a vulnerable person, then between us and the council, they will be found some type of temporary accommodation, whether it's a council property that's just for temporary accommodation, our crash pad, or even a B&B. But that's very short term. But we were in a position this year and late last year, actually, where there was a waiting list for the crash pad. And we've never experienced that. And over winter, we turned our day centre into a night shelter at night. And our hostel was full, our crash pad was full, and our night shelter was full. And in my 10 years, we've never experienced that. And that's really concerning.
I think I might have just fallen into that trap of that misconception of homeless people are just rough sleepers who've got nowhere to go. And it's not about that, is it? It's, as you say, it's about circumstance. And it might be something that's, as you say, something that's happened in the home, whether that is violence or other kind of things. So it's obviously it's a bigger social issue. So how are you tackling that, presumably with other charities?
Absolutely, and it's the hidden homeless, and it's a term we often use, and people have heard the term sofa surfing. So it might be people staying with family and friends. But what we've seen, and I think this is why we've seen an increase in demand since COVID. Since COVID and the cost of living crisis, people can't afford to have people stay with them. So sofa surfing, having an extra adult in your house costs money. And families can't maybe take the brother-in-law or the auntie or the uncle that might find themselves homeless for longer. I think also often, well, not often, but one of the key reasons for homelessness is family breakdowns. And it's not just partners, it's family breakdowns between adult children and parents. And having an adult child stay with you has a cost implication. So I think that's also one of the reasons. Cost of living doesn't just affect a family, it affects how they can support other families as well, if that makes sense. And we do work with a number of other charities to try and see what we can do. And that's around, again, drug and alcohol support, mental health support, working with other homeless charities. We're really lucky in Dacorum that we have a very supportive council, and that really makes a difference, and they're very proactive.
You mentioned COVID there and the change since then. And also you mentioned this year being the first year that Crash Pad Day Centre, like completely overbooked. Do you look into the reasons behind that? Yeah. Do we know what it is? And
we do look into it. And what we do is look at the reasons why people are coming to us. And we you have to do that longitudinally. You have to do that over a year or two. And at the moment, it's really hard to sort of identify I'm not going to say our gut feeling, but our initial thoughts looking at the information and data is around cost of living.
Yeah.
We also have more people in our hostel that are actually working. So it may be that again is to relationship breakdowns and family breakdowns. It's also, I think, and I said we're sort of interrogating the data more, is even if you're working, people are financially struggling. And if were working full-time and now working part-time, or if you're on a contract, 0-hour contracts were not great at all. And there's not so many of them now. Mm-hmm. But there are still people whose hours might change on a weekly basis. And that has implications. Also, rent in Hemel Hempstead, Berkhamsted, obviously we know rent's significant. Rent in Hemel Hempstead is high, really high, because we're so close to London. And for people on benefits or people on a low income, it's really hard to get private rental. We've actually we launched a program yesterday. It started in November. We launched it yesterday about supporting people into private rental, but also supporting people that are at risk of eviction from private rental. And landlords don't want to evict people, but they get very nervous about working with or taking tenants that you might not have two adults working. And rent in Hemel Hempstead, places go within 4 or 5 hours. So they can actually choose who they want to choose. Yeah. So we're trying to widen that as well. But it is really difficult out there.
I was going to say, how do you tackle that? Is it
so we're working with landlords. We're working with landlords, but we also offer them a support package.
Right.
So we will work with the clients and with the landlords. So we're almost like a mediator between the two. We will provide 24/7 property support. We will ensure that if someone is on benefits, the benefits can be paid directly to the landlord. Because landlords don't want to evict people. They just sometimes get quite overwhelmed. And obviously with the Renters Act, things are changing quite considerably. So it's sort of been that go-between and providing more support for the landlords. So it's easier for them.
So do you find as a charity, effectively you're a business as well, right?
We are. We're a business whose any surplus we make, if we do make any surplus, is just fed back into the charity. But, we are a business. So when national insurance came out, it hit us. It hit us like it hit everyone else. Fuel costs go up. That hits us both directly because we have a van, but also our suppliers' costs go up. So that hits us. The food bank donations have gone down, individual donations, because cost of living hits families, so they donate less. The donations in general, like individual donations and business donations, are Interestingly, individual donations haven't gone down as much, but business donations are going down. So it's a perfect storm. We have an increase in clients, an increase in people needing us, and a decrease in the funding that's coming through.
As a perfect storm, it seems to be they come along quite often, these perfect storms, particularly in the area of homelessness and poverty.
Yeah.
So we're not going to fix it on this podcast, but it is, how do you fix it? Is the question I guess people keep asking. It's what can I do? And do we just keep feeding a machine that's just keeps, it seems cyclical, which obviously one of the big things you're talking about doing is keeping people in accommodation to break that cycle.
Yeah, I mean, all CEOs of charities are going to say, so we need money. And, funding is so important. But for me, what DENS is about is funding long-term solutions, which why we focus on not just providing that immediate support, but that prevention and that breaking the cycle. And for people listening and watching this, that monthly donation to an organisation is really important to ensure we've got that constant stream of money coming through is really important.
Yeah, so I've spoken to CEOs of charities before, and they say because it's essentially like in a business terms, it's your retainer, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's our bread and butter money.
Yeah, it's what keeps everything going.
And then we can plan, and funding cycles from whether it be government grants and trust-making bodies, them being longer term makes a big difference as well. I think things have changed. We used to be more in a position where you get 1 or 2 year funding. It's very hard to plan on that. So I think grant-making bodies are getting better at sort of 3-year funding. And I think it's people understanding that's what's needed, but also with government funding. And I think sometimes we can become a victim of our own success. So we have very low rough sleeper numbers in Dacorum, which is brilliant. And I think that's absolutely down to the work DENS does and DENS does with the local council. But sometimes government funding they will look at what the need is. So if the rough sleeper numbers are high, they might give that area more funding. Well, don't take our funding because then in 3 years' time, our rough sleeper numbers will be high.
Oh, we're back to a cyclical thing then, aren't we? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's about, and I do get there's limited funding. I do understand that. But if a charity or program is going well, then don't not fund them. I mean, that's just ridiculous, isn't it? Fund them so they can continue to do the work.
Definitely. Take me inside then. A day in the life of a charity CEO or of the DENS CEO.
Oh goodness, where do I start? It is so. I know it sounds very cliched, but every day is different. And I think when you're a CEO of a charity of DENS size, we're a small to medium term charity. So my role is to lead the organisation, to be strategic, to make sure we're compliant, to make sure there's good governance, and to ensure that we continue to provide really good, effective services and liaising with key stakeholders. Saying that, over Easter, a couple of staff on off leave, and you become quite operational. And every now and then, I will pick up. I won't do a lot of front line, but I might have to do front line, or I might have to be the on-call for the evening. So, and I actually quite like making sure I constantly know what's going on the ground, but it can be quite challenging. Our senior leadership team is myself and 3 others. We don't have this huge machine behind us, and that's good because we can be agile, and it means I know what's going on the ground. But I also need to be strategic. I need to influence our key stakeholders. And Dacorum, like a load of other areas, are about to go through some significant change. We're local government reorganisation means that in 2 years' time, Dacorum isn't going to exist. So myself and a lot of other charity CEOs are looking at how that will impact on us.
I think there's that. We seem to be saying the word misconception quite a lot, but there is a misconception that charity CEOs are, oh well, you do fundraising then. How can I donate and how can I do things? But essentially, you are running that business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you said, like the cost of diesel, things like that. It's those economics which are affecting poverty and homelessness and the cost of living and affecting how you run a business. So how are those day-to-day challenges met within the business?
So budgeting is always a challenge because
for everyone,
it is a bit of a what is going to come through, what funds are going to come through. But, we have a very tight, we have a very good fundraising team, but every month, like any other leader of an organisation, I'm looking at our budgets, I'm looking at what the trends are, I'm looking at what the income is, what expenditure is, and that takes, to be a good CEO and a good leader, even with a strong finance team, and our finance team is one part-time head of finance and two others, is constantly looking at that. And we will have, hopefully we're not going to have to make any tough decisions this year, but that's part of what we do. It is running a business, and all charities are really being hit with having to look at making difficult decisions. Fundamentally, it's about what can we do to ensure we can keep providing the most important services and prioritising our services. And okay, if we know something needs to be done, but is there another charity that does that really well? So let's not duplicate. And collaborating with other charities is key. And not just other charities, other businesses, other organisations, other charities, because there is enough work for all of us out there.
Is there a WhatsApp group of charity CEOs?
There is several, actually, yeah. So I work very closely with other homeless charity CEOs in Hertfordshire. I also work very closely with other charities, a range of charities in Dacorum. And some of that is just about mutual support. Yeah. Because like any CEO, it can be quite isolating. And I think it's very important to have that energy. I always say to be a CEO of a charity, you have to be at least half full, if not 3/4 full. And every threat is an opportunity, and it is keeping that energy up. Because our frontline staff deal with some really challenging issues, and we can't forget that. But it's making sure people be constantly positive about the organisation.
I was going to ask you about that because there is the business mind and there are obviously emotions involved. And how do you manage that? I can't imagine how I would manage. I'm a softie at heart. Yeah. I can't imagine how I'd manage those emotions on a day-to-day basis with a lot of the things that you must see that you wish you hadn't.
It's difficult, but at the same time, it's so important for me to never forget why DENS exists, why I'm a leader of a charity. And, there's a couple of our clients that have been with us on and off for years. And when I see them and when I know we're making a difference, that's so important to me. Getting the funding in is really important. Launching new services is really important. But for me, it's still very important that I go into our hostel and someone will say, "Hi, Wendy." And they'll stop me and say what's worked really well. And you can't forget that. You cannot forget what you are about. And hearing the stories. So yesterday, as I said, we launched our private rental scheme, and we had a video of a 55-year-old man that had gone into private rental for the first time, and he was talking about how DENS had changed his life. I get goosebumps every time. When I stop getting goosebumps, it's time to move on, because that's why we do the job. And that's why we have the sleepless nights, and that's why we make the tough decisions. And I always think I'm incredibly lucky that we have a really good staff team, and they never lose that empathy. Mm-hmm. And they will always put our clients first. And sometimes, that's where the challenges come. It's like, we want to do this for our clients. It's like, okay, but I need to make sure we've got the budget to do that. Yeah. But you never want to lose sight of that. And when you do lose sight of that, it's time to move on to something else.
And I guess you never want to put a solution in front of people that might need to be removed as well. But sometimes I guess there's no choice in that.
No. And we've been lucky. We've managed not to have to do that. And it's always looking at how, as an organisation, we can work smartly. and what we can do, and really focusing on what our mission is as an organisation. But over the last year, I've seen a number, and not just small charities, a number of charities have stopped working, have had to close the doors, and that's really sad. And that's not through mismanagement, and that's not through bad leadership. That's just the way things are at the moment.
I was talking to the CEO of a national charity and the numbers just to keep the doors open, just to keep the staff, as you say, because of, not just because of national insurance, but because you've got a talented team and you need it's like any other business, you need to attract talent, right?
Absolutely.
But the numbers involved in keeping something like that going.
Our biggest cost is staff.
Yeah.
And I don't have an issue with that at all. And I think the days where people think people that work for charities are all volunteering has changed. We do have a number of very, very good volunteers. But if we don't pay our staff well, we're not going to get expertise and we're not going to be able to make a difference. Also, we talk about a cost of living crisis. We talk about supporting people in poverty and social exclusion. I cannot have our staff needing to use a food bank. That would be horrendous for me as a CEO for that. So we need to make sure we support our staff, but we also need to ensure we support our staff around their mental health as well. We use an employee assistance program, but we also make sure our staff have access to also professional supervision. We always make sure our staff take their leave. We have mental health wellbeing days where we get our staff together. All those things are really important to ensure our staff come to work and not get burnt out.
Yeah.
But I also need to ensure my leadership team don't get burnt out as well.
Yeah, and it's a big thing. Again, a lot of business leaders talking about at the moment is the stopping that burnout, because it's particularly for a charities, it's counterintuitive. I mean, it's counterintuitive for any business.
Yeah.
How can we help as a business community?
Yeah.
You've got some you've got some regular fundraising that goes on. We've talked about, if you can, donate, put something aside every month. That's always great.
So there's a number of different things, so even just being part of our event. So we have the Castle Walk coming up on the 14th of June in Berkhamsted, starting off at the castle as a 5 mile and 10 mile. All the information is on our website, dens.org.uk. We have a number of events like that. We'll have the sleep out. We have 20 people running in the London Marathon.
Amazing.
Which is fantastic. And we have London Marathon places for the next 4 years. Companies can run their own events. Individuals can donate. Companies can donate. We have a business program, so companies can sign up to being regular givers. So there's the fundraising, whether it's individual businesses or being part of events. But it's also about promoting DENS. It's also about organisations and individuals being champions for DENS and just sort of promoting what we do. It can also be with a food bank. When you go shopping, chuck a couple of extra tins in. I mean, we say when we go shopping, most of us do it online now, but it doesn't have to be.
It's even easier to do that. You just add them to the cart.
Literally, just add another. On our website, we'll have a high needs list of things we need. And it can be an extra carton of, the own brand squash. Yeah. It can be a tin of soup. It can be, there's a range of different things.
Beans, pulses, things like that.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be really expensive things. Cleaning products. So our food bank doesn't just provide food. People need to clean their house. And so those products, toiletry products are really important. And the toiletry products might be, it could be sanitary towels, it could be shower gels, it could be shampoos. And they will go in the food bank parcels, but will also for our clients that are within our services. So there's quite a range of different things people can do.
Where can we donate those, Wendy?
So a lot of supermarkets will actually have donation sites for our food bank. Tesco's, Waitrose, all the usuals. They can be brought up to the food bank. Companies might want to have their own collection points. Yeah. Our fundraising team will happily support people to do that, most definitely.
Brilliant. How did you get involved in this section and this area then, Wendy? You've been at DENS for 10 years. I detect only a slight accent
a twang of an Australian accent. So I was actually born in Aylesbury. My dad's from Tring. My mum's Irish, but my mum and dad actually met in Berkhamsted. And then when I was 6, we were £10 poms and were carted off to Australia, to Perth. My family have always, particularly my dad, has always really focused on empowering disempowered people. My dad was a bricklayer, but he was also a union official. So there was always that working to ensure people were looked after. And my parents always did quite a lot of volunteering work. I actually trained as a psychologist in Australia and Australia.
You see, now you started talking about Australia, it's coming out.
It sneaks out there. And I actually worked in prisons and worked with people with drug and alcohol issues. And then when I was 25, I did I'll just go to London for 6 months and then met a boy and stayed here. But I've always worked, whether it was as a psychologist or when I came over here, I've always worked in the charity sector. And I've always worked with disenfranchised or disempowered people, whether it be offenders, youth offenders, children in care and care leavers, and then for the last 10 years in homelessness.
Fantastic. And what brought you back to the area, to Berkhamsted?
Boy.
Was it? It's always a boy or a girl, isn't it, in that scenario?
I live locally. I live in Leighton Buzzard, and I came there. I moved there with someone numerous years ago, but my husband now actually was originally from Berkhamsted, and it's. I really like. I don't live in Dacorum, and actually, with our client group, sometimes it's quite nice not necessarily living directly where you work.
Yes.
But I like the fact that I live and work fairly local. And, I get a buzz when I drive to work and I see one of our DENS posters up. When I'm at work and driving around Hemel Hempstead and I see our DENS van, I am so proud of what we do. I really get a buzz from seeing that. And when I go into our local coffee shop in Hemel High Street in the Old Town, and they're big supporters of DENS. And for me, that's just fantastic. That gives me such a buzz.
Brilliant. And if I may say, as a business community, I know that business community is very proud of DENS as well, and always wanting to get behind and support them. Wendy, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Just remind us, we've got the Castle Walk one.
We've got the Castle Walk on the 14th of June.
Yeah.
It's a 5 mile and 10 miles, so suitable for families.
Yeah.
And there's always a range of events. There's actually the Hemel Hempstead 5K and 10K run. I'm going to say May the 17th. I should know because I'm doing it.
We'll put it in the show notes.
But jump on our website and there's always a range of fundraising opportunities.
Wendy, thank you for being on the Berko and Beyond podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been great.
Thanks. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Berko and Beyond. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, then drop us an email, podcast@berkoandbeyond.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. We'll see you next week.